Chapter 26. 3 unmarked SUVs with tinted windows waited on an access road, engines idling with a low rumble that vibrated through the ground. Pack members efficiently loaded Mikhail into the first vehicle where medical supplies had already been prepared. The interior lights revealed a space transformed into a mobile treatment area with equipment that would rival some emergency rooms. Katerina directed Damon toward the second SUV, then turned to Isabella. "You're with him," she said, nodding toward the vehicle containing Mikhail. There was something new in Katerina's gaze, a respect that hadn't been there before. "He'll need you." Isabella didn't question the arrangement. Climbing into the back of the SUV, where Mikhail lay on a folded-down seat that had been converted into a treatment surface. The interior smelled of antiseptic and leather, with an underlying note of blood. A woman, Isabella, recognized as Doctor Lydia Chang, the pack's physician, was already cutting away what remained of Mikhail's shirt. Her precise movements spoke of years of experience, each cut carefully placed to avoid causing additional pain. "Pressure here," Dr. Chang instructed Isabella without preamble, indicating the deepest of the chest wounds. Her voice was calm and authoritative. Isabella complied, placing her hands over the gauze Dr. Chang had applied. The material was already soaking through, warm and wet beneath her palms. The SUV began moving, its suspension absorbing the worst bumps as they pulled away from the abandoned facility. Through the tinted windows, the water treatment plant receded into the distance, its broken silhouette a monument to the night's violence. Mikhail's eyes fluttered open at her touch, focusing on her face with effort. "Victor was right about one thing," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the engine's hum. "There is an entanglement between an alpha and their chosen human. But he misunderstood its nature." Isabella leaned closer to hear him. The scent of him, even wounded, stirred something in her, a recognition beyond the physical. "What do you mean?" "It's not a vulnerability," Mikhail continued, wincing as the SUV navigated a particularly rough section of road. The vehicle bounced, causing him to grimace as the impact jarred his wounds. "It's a source of power. The wolf draws strength from the bond. That's how I could transform fully, even though I was injured." Dr. Chang, ostensibly focused on preparing an IV line, clearly listened intently. Her hands never paused in their work, but her head was tilted slightly toward their conversation. "Are you saying I somehow was like a battery for you back there?" Isabella asked, incredulous. A weak smile touched Mikhail's lips. "Not somehow. Definitely." His hand found hers where it pressed against his wound, his fingers intertwining with her blood-slicked ones. The touch sent a jolt of warmth up her arm, as if completing a circuit. "My father once told me that in our history, the most powerful alphas were those who found their perfect complement in the human world. Someone with a spirit that resonates with the wolf's own nature." The intensity in his gaze made Isabella's breath catch. Despite his injuries, despite the chaos of the night, there was a certainty in his expression that reached something deep inside her. The world beyond the SUV's windows, the trees flashing by, the lightening sky, seemed to fade away, leaving only this moment, this connection. "When I saw Victor holding you by the throat," Mikhail continued, his voice strengthening with each word, "something broke through. A barrier I didn't even know existed. I could feel you, your determination, your refusal to show fear. It was like your strength flowed into me. Dr. Chang cleared her throat, interrupting the moment. This is all very fascinating, but I need to sedate him to treat these wounds properly. She gave Isabella an apologetic look. Alpha healing is accelerated, but these injuries are severe. He needs actual medical intervention, not just his natural abilities. Isabella nodded, reluctantly withdrawing her hand from Mikhail's. The loss of contact felt palpable, as if something had been unplugged. Will he be okay? He's too stubborn to die, Dr. Chang replied with the familiarity of someone who had treated the patient many times before. She prepared a syringe, the liquid inside catching the light. Especially now that he's apparently channeling ancient alpha powers. This last was said with a touch of scientific skepticism. As the sedative took effect, Mikhail's eyes began to close. His hand reached for Isabella again, fingers searching blindly until they found hers. "Stay," he murmured, the words slurring slightly as the medication took hold. "I'm right here," she promised, taking his hand in hers. His pulse beat steadily against her fingers, a reassuring rhythm. "I'm not going anywhere." The journey to safety passed in a blur of medical terminology and scenery glimpsed through tinted windows. Isabella remained at Mikhail's side, following Dr. Chang's instructions to hold instruments or apply pressure as needed. The interior of the SUV smelled increasingly of blood and antiseptic. The metallic and chemical scents creating a disorienting combination. Despite the doctor's expert care, Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching Mikhail slip away. His skin had taken on a greyish tinge, and his breathing had become shallow and irregular. The vehicle's movement created a hypnotic backdrop. The gentle rocking, almost soothing if not for the life or death drama unfolding within its confines. "He's lost too much blood," Dr. Chang muttered, more to herself than to Isabella. Her brow furrowed as she checked Mikhail's pulse. Even with his regenerative abilities. "What do you need?" Isabella demanded. "Tell me how to help." The desperation in her voice surprised even her. Dr. Chang gave her a measured look. "There's a theory that blood from a bonded human can accelerate an alpha's healing. It's mentioned in the old texts, but I've never seen it tested." "Take mine," Isabella said without hesitation. The words came instantly, without thought. "If there's a chance it will help, do it." "It's not that simple," the doctor warned. "The bonding Victor referred to. It's more metaphysical than medical. If it's not established fully, your blood would be no different from any other human's." "Then what?" "The bond is established through a mutual claiming," Dr. Chang explained, her clinical tone at odds with the mystical concept. "In werewolf tradition, that means an exchange of blood freely given, accompanied by an acknowledgement of the connection." Isabella absorbed this information quickly, her mind cutting through to the essential facts. "Then take my blood. How do we do this?" Dr. Chang studied her face, apparently satisfied with what she saw there. "I'll make a small incision on your palm. You'll press it to his primary wound. Here." She indicated the deepest of the 3 gashes across Mikhail's chest, where the bleeding was most persistent. "And you'll need to speak the acknowledgement." "Which is?" "Whatever feels right," the doctor replied simply. "The words matter less than the intent behind them." Isabella nodded, extending her hand. "Do it." Dr. Chang produced a sterile scalpel from her medical kit, the blade gleaming in the dim interior lighting. She made a quick, precise cut across Isabella's palm. Blood welled immediately, bright red against her skin, the pain sharp but clean. "Now," the doctor instructed, pulling back the bandage covering Mikhail's worst wound. The exposed flesh was angry and raw, blood still seeping despite their efforts to staunch it. Isabella pressed her bleeding palm directly to the gaping laceration on Mikhail's chest. The contact sent a jolt of sensation up her arm. Not pain, but something more elemental, as though her blood recognized something in his. Heat spread from the point of contact, flowing up her arm and throughout her body. "I acknowledge the bond between us," she said, the words coming unbidden. They felt ancient in her mouth, as if they'd been waiting for decades. "My strength is yours, as yours has been mine." For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then, beneath her hand, Isabella felt a subtle change, a warmth that seemed to pulse in time with their shared heartbeats. Mikhail's breathing deepened, and color returned to his face in a visible wave. The SUV's interior seemed bright, though the lights hadn't changed. Dr. Chang's professional composure slipped briefly, her eyes widening as she monitored Mikhail's vital signs on a portable device. "Remarkable," she murmured. "His blood pressure is stabilizing, pulse strengthening." Isabella felt light-headed but maintained the connection, instinctively understanding that breaking it too soon would disrupt whatever healing process had begun. Beneath her palm, she could feel Mikhail's wound changing, the edges drawing together, tissue knitting in a process that should have taken days or weeks. The sensation was bizarre, like feeling ants crawling beneath her palm, yet not unpleasant. Finally, Dr. Chang gently lifted Isabella's hand away. The cut on her palm had sealed itself, leaving only a thin white line where moments before there had been an open wound. Similarly, Mikhail's injury had closed to a fraction of its former size, the edges pink with new scar tissue. "The traditional texts didn't exaggerate," Dr. Chang said, examining both healed wounds with professional interest. Her fingertips traced the new scar tissue on Mikhail's chest with clinical detachment. "I've never seen anything like this." Mikhail's eyes opened, clearer and more alert than before. The blue seemed more intense somehow, as if lit from within. His gaze immediately found Isabella's face. "You claim the bond," he said, wonder in his voice. "It seemed like the least I could do," Isabella replied, attempting lightness despite the profound significance of what had just transpired between them. "You did save my life back there." A smile touched his lips. "We saved each other." His expression grew serious. "Do you understand what this means? In Lycan tradition..." The SUV slowed, then turned onto what felt like a private drive, and shortly thereafter through a set of imposing iron gates. The tires crunched on gravel, the sound oddly comforting after the night's chaos. Dr. Chang began repacking her equipment with quick, efficient movements. "We've arrived at the safe house," she announced. "This conversation should continue after both of you have rested." Isabella helped Mikhail sit up as the vehicle came to a stop. Though still clearly injured, his improvement was nothing short of miraculous. He moved with a fraction of his usual grace, but without the agonizing pain evident earlier. His skin was warm under her hands, no longer the sickly grey of impending shock. "Damon," Isabella said suddenly, remembering her assistant. She peered through the tinted window at the SUV behind them, trying to make out shapes in its darkened interior. "How is he?" "In the vehicle behind us," Dr. Chang replied, organizing bloody gauze into a biohazard bag. "Dehydrated, several broken fingers, and some fractured ribs. He'll need time to process what he's experienced, but physically, he should recover relatively quickly." The SUV's door opened, revealing a tree-lined driveway leading to what appeared to be a secluded, multi-story country estate. The morning light filtered through the branches, dappling the ground with shifting patterns. The air that rushed in was fresh and clean, carrying the scent of pine and dew-soaked grass. Several pack members stood at attention along the driveway, their posture changing subtly as they recognized their alpha was conscious and alert. Isabella stepped out of the SUV and just stared. "Exactly how many places do you own, Mikhail?" Katerina was already standing outside the second car, relief visible in her usually stoic expression. "The safe house is secured," she reported, her voice carrying easily in the quiet morning air. "No signs of pursuit or surveillance." "Victor?" Mikhail asked as he carefully exited the vehicle, leaning on Isabella for support. His body was solid and warm against hers, his usual strength beginning to return. "We have made arrangements to secure his body before it makes it to the coroner. We can bury him when you are well enough to participate." Isabella helped Mikhail toward the house, acutely aware of the eyes following their progress, particularly the point of contact between them. News of what had transpired in the SUV had spread already, based on the mixture of curiosity and respect in the gazes directed at her. The safe house was a series of sprawling ranch-style buildings, its unassuming exterior belying what Isabella suspected was state-of-the-art security. The wood siding was weathered to a soft grey, blending naturally with the surrounding forest. Inside, the decor was minimalist but comfortable, clearly designed as a functional retreat rather than a permanent residence. The air carried the scent of pine cleaner and something else, a subtle, musky undertone she recognized as the scent of pack. Dr. Chang directed them to a bedroom prepared with medical equipment. The space was austere, but practical. A hospital bed with clean sheets, monitoring equipment, and stands for IVs. "Rest," she ordered Mikhail. "No pack business for at least 12 hours. Doctor's orders." Mikhail didn't protest, which told Isabella more about his condition than any medical assessment. Despite the miraculous healing, he was still seriously injured. His eyes, though clearer, still held shadows of pain. "Isabella needs to be seen too," he said, as Dr. Chang helped him onto the bed. The sheets rustled as he settled against them, wincing slightly. "I will," she promised. "But first, I need to check on Damon." She couldn't shake the image of his battered, frightened face, or the knowledge that he'd been dragged into this because of his connection to her. Mikhail nodded in understanding. "Send him my apologies. This was never supposed to touch your human life." Isabella touched his cheek gently, the stubble rough against her fingers. "I think we're well past such distinctions, don't you?" The intimacy of the gesture felt natural, despite the audience of Dr. Chang and Katerina, who pretended not to notice, but missed nothing. Katerina cleared her throat. "I'll show you to your assistant. He's been asking for you." Isabella followed the werewolf enforcer down a hallway to a comfortable sitting room, where Damon sat with his splintered hands wrapped around a mug of what smelled like herbal tea. Steam rose from the surface, carrying the scent of chamomile and honey. A butterfly bandage closed the worst of the split in his lip, and the swelling around his eye had been reduced with cold compresses. In the natural light streaming through large windows, he looked younger and more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "Isabella," he said, relief evident as he stood. The mug trembled slightly in his hands. "Are you okay? Your neck?" "I'm fine," she assured him, touching the bandage Dr. Chang had applied to Victor's claw marks before they'd arrived. The wound stung faintly at the pressure. "How are you feeling?" "Thrashed," Damon admitted. He attempted a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Reading files about supernatural entities and being kidnapped by one are vastly different experiences. Isabella glanced at Katerina, who gave an almost imperceptible snort before withdrawing from the room, closing the door behind her with a soft click. Her footsteps faded down the hallway, unnaturally quiet even on the hardwood floors. No amount of research could prepare anyone for that, Isabella said, sitting across from Damon. The leather armchair embraced her aching body, making her realize how exhausted she was. Reading about werewolves in government cover-up files is one thing. Seeing Victor transform... Damon studied her face, his analytical mind processing the night's events. The morning light illuminated his features, showing every nuance of his expression as he struggled to reconcile his theoretical knowledge with what he'd experienced firsthand. "Those redacted files you showed me didn't mention anything about their eyes glowing like that, or the speed." He shuddered. "When he moved, it wasn't natural, not even close to what I imagined." Isabella took a deep breath, the scent of chamomile momentarily grounding her. The classified reports sanitized everything. They treat supernatural beings like scientific specimens, not the complex creatures they actually are. "And Volkov," Damon said, his voice steadying. "Seeing him fight like that was different from everything I thought I understood. The transformation he underwent was..." He paused, searching for words. "It was beautiful and terrifying, simultaneously." Isabella nodded, watching his reaction carefully. "Our files don't capture even a fraction of their true nature. Especially not what an alpha like Mikhail is capable of." Damon awkwardly set down his mug with a clunk against the coffee table. "I thought I was prepared because I knew the truth. I've been helping you gather evidence of the corruption covering up supernatural existence for weeks." But a humorless laugh escaped him. "Nothing prepares you for the reality of being dragged through an abandoned building by something that shouldn't exist. Knowledge and experience are very different things," Isabella replied. "I felt the same way the first time I saw Mikhail transform." Damon absorbed this in silence, his expression cycling through disbelief, shock, and finally, a sort of resigned acceptance. "Damon, it's important that we maintain their secret," Isabella began gently. "Their existence depends on secrecy. If the human world discovered them..." Mass panic, militarized response, persecution. Damon nodded slowly. "I can imagine." Isabella studied her assistant with newfound appreciation. The analytical mind that made him excellent at legal work was now rapidly processing this new reality. "You're taking this remarkably well," she said. "Am I?" Damon gave a shaky laugh. "I think I'm in shock. Or maybe After being kidnapped by a monster with glowing eyes, the existence of werewolves seems like the least insane explanation. He picked up his mug again, taking a careful sip. The scent of chamomile wafted stronger with the movement. So, what happens now? Do I get a memory wipe with a little blinky light? No memory wipes, Isabella assured him with a small smile. But you will be asked to keep their secret. Your life might depend on it. Damon met her gaze. And you? Where do you fit into all this now that Victor is dead? The question pierced the heart of what Isabella had avoided confronting. Her place in this new world she'd discovered. She touched her palm where the cut had been. Now just a faint white line barely visible against her skin. It's complicated, she said finally. I've become involved in ways I never expected. With Volkov, Damon said. Not a question. Isabella nodded. With Mikhail. And with his pack, to some extent. Pack, Damon repeated, testing the word. Like a big bad wolf family. More structured than a typical family, Isabella explained. It's a hierarchical social unit, with Mikhail as the alpha, the leader. They protect their territory, essentially most of Atlanta, from both supernatural and human threats. Damon processed this information using the same methodical approach he had applied to legal cases. His eyes, despite the swelling around one, were sharp and focused. So those other people, the ones who helped rescue us, they're all werewolves, Isabella confirmed. Part of Mikhail's pack. But not you, Damon noted. You're still human. It's not like he's going to bite you and have puppies with you or something. Isabella hesitated. After what happened in the SUV, she wasn't entirely sure what she was anymore. The bond Dr. Chang had described, the healing that had occurred, went beyond normal human experience. She could still feel a warm presence at the edge of her awareness, like knowing a fire burns in the next room without seeing the flames. I'm human, she said finally, but connected to their world now, more deeply than I ever thought I might be. Damon studied her with the perceptiveness she counted on him for. You're going to leave the DA's office permanently, aren't you? He asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them, as inescapable as gravity. The question struck Isabella like a physical blow. She hadn't allowed herself to confront that inevitability fully. But Damon had gone straight to the heart of it. The sunlight streaming through the windows suddenly seemed too bright, illuminating a truth she wasn't ready to face. I don't know, she admitted. After everything that's happened, I'm not sure I can return to prosecuting ordinary human crimes when I know what else exists in the shadows. She met his gaze directly. But I haven't made any decisions yet. Damon nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you've found something important here. In all the years I've worked with you, I've never seen you look at anyone the way you looked at him when you thought I wasn't watching. Heat rushed to Isabella's cheeks. She hadn't realized her feelings were so transparent, and she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge their depth until now. The world needs good prosecutors, Damon continued. But maybe it also needs people who understand both sides. Human and whatever the fussy monster side is called. Supernatural, Isabella supplied with a small smile. Though they tend to use more specific terms for different groups. Supernatural, Damon repeated, shaking his head slightly. If anyone had told me a month ago that I'd be having this conversation, Tell me about it, Isabella agreed. A month ago, my biggest concern was the Richardson case file. The absurdity of it struck them both simultaneously, and they shared a moment of laughter that carried the edge of hysteria that comes after trauma. The sound filled the room, bright and cleansing against the backdrop of the morning's quiet. It felt liberating somehow, a release of tension that had built since this ordeal began. As their laughter subsided, Damon grew serious again. What happens after we leave here? Do we just go back to our normal lives, pretending none of this happened? Isabella sighed, the question sobering her instantly. Outside, a bird called, the sound incongruously ordinary after all they'd experienced. I don't think anything will be normal again. At least not like before. Victor may be dead, but corrupt officials are still working with him. The chief prosecutor for one. Possibly others. They've been covering up Victor's murders, interfering with the investigation. I also can't imagine that Rogers will be happy that Victor is dead. Damon whistled low. So, we're discussing a conspiracy involving supernatural creatures and human authorities. That's ... Terrifying, Isabella finished for him. Yes. And complicated to prosecute, Damon added, with the instincts of a legal mind. How exactly do you present evidence about werewolf involvement without revealing their existence? That's part of what we need to figure out, Isabella acknowledged. But not today. Today is for recovery. As if on cue, the door opened and Katerina reappeared. Her presence filled the doorway, somehow larger than her physical form would suggest. Doctor, Chang asked me to remind you that you also need rest, she told Isabella, her tone making it clear this was an order rather than a suggestion. A room has been prepared for you, and she would also like to check you out more thoroughly. Isabella nodded, suddenly aware of the bone deep she'd held at bay, with adrenaline and concern for others. Her body felt leaden, each movement requiring concentrated effort. Damon should rest, too. He will remain here, Katerina said. This wing is secure, and pack members are stationed outside. No one will disturb either of you. Isabella turned to Damon. Will you be okay? He managed a tired smile. I think I've had enough excitement for one day. Sleep sounds perfect. No more pixie girls for me. Well, at least for a little while. Isabella followed Katerina down another hallway to a bedroom that had been hastily prepared but was nonetheless comfortable. The walls were painted a soothing sage green, and the bedding was simple but high quality. The room smelled faintly of lavender and pine, with underlying notes of the pack scent she was beginning to recognize. Fresh clothes had been laid out on the bed. Simple cotton garments that would fit her well enough. The Alpha is asking for you, Katerina said as Isabella entered the room. But Dr. Chang insists you both rest first. He will be here when you wake. Isabella nodded, too exhausted to argue. The bed looked unbelievably inviting, a promise of oblivion she desperately needed. Thank you, Katerina, for helping me to save Damon. The werewolf enforcer's usually stoic expression softened slightly. The pack protects its own. She hesitated, then added, What you did in the SUV, it changes things. So I gathered, Isabella replied, though I'm not entirely sure what it means yet. It means you're no longer just an ally, Katerina said simply. You're bound to the Alpha, and through him, to the pack. That makes you one of us, human or not. With those words she left, closing the door quietly behind her. The latch clicked softly, the sound final somehow. Isabella sank onto the edge of the bed, the events of the past 24 hours crashing over her like a wave. Just yesterday, she had been a DA with a secret knowledge of the supernatural world. Now she was... what exactly? Bound to a werewolf alpha through some mystical blood exchange, a human member of a werewolf pack. She glanced at her palm where the cut had been, tracing the faint white line with her fingertip. Whatever had happened in that SUV had changed her in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. She could still feel Mikhail somehow, a warm presence at the edge of her awareness, like knowing the sun is shining even with your eyes closed. The connection hummed between them, invisible but undeniable. Outside her window, a wolf howled in the distance, an ancient, a new sound like the path she had chosen. And somewhere in the house, though separated by walls and watchful pack members, she sensed Mikhail responding to the call in his sleep, their connection transcending distance and consciousness alike. And then, darkness claimed her, peaceful and dreamless, as the bond between them hummed like a lullaby beneath her skin,